Hey everybody, it's Stacy Hayes. I'm here on the phone with my good friend Bryce at Opkalla. Thanks for jumping in with us today. We know everybody is having Zoom fatigue, and probably the last thing you want to do on what is the best hooky day of 2021 is sit inside and listen to me talk about backup and disaster recovery. But obviously, it's an important topic, so you're here. So what I would say is, right as soon as we're done with this, get outside, because Bryce says it's nice in Charlotte. It's really nice up here in outside of Washington, D.C. in Northern Virginia. But thanks for joining us. And Bryce, you wanna kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, and I'll reiterate that what Stacy said. Thanks everybody for being with us for our February webinar with Assured DP. For those that didn't know, I just wanted to do a quick introduction to Opkalla, who we are, what we do, and then talk about why we wanted to have Assured DP hop on and chat with everybody. So starting with Opkalla, we're an IT trusted advisory firm. We specialize in all things cloud and within the data center. Also heavy focus on security, network, ISP WAN, all things around voice and unified communications, and we do have some managed services that we help support for our clients as well. We take a vendor agnostic approach. Really takes the time-consuming vendor evaluation process that you go through, and it narrows it down to providers that meet your specific needs. So we do the research, we evaluate the market, so our clients don't have to. Think of us as an education tool. Or a mini Gartner that actually helps you get to the finish line on a closed deal. So all in all, what does this do for you? It helps you save you time and money. So we're talking to Assured DP today, talking all things Rubrik, disaster recovery, and backup. But if you have an upcoming IT project or in a project right now that you're going through a sales cycle for, that maybe you're having difficulty completing, or you're not sure which vendor's right for you, we'd love to talk to you. I'll reach out to everybody at the end of the webinar just saying thanks for attending. We're also giving away prizes, which I'll let the winners know as well. But let me know if we can schedule a further conversation about disaster recovery and backup and Assured DP, or any other IT project that you're working on. Just want to let everybody on the call know we do these webinars monthly. We add registrants and attendees to our email list. We'll send these out every month for everyone to learn a little bit about a new topic, as well as learn about some providers out there that can bring an easy potential solution to the table. So again, we are super excited to have Assured DP join us today. They have a very unique offering around backup and disaster recovery using Rubrik. They're a premier managed Rubrik partner in the country, one of the biggest in the country, and offer unique features. They offer a lot. We're really excited about 4 that we're going to touch on today. So they offer Rubrik Tier 1 support and maintenance, both OpEx and CapEx models to procure Rubrik as backup and disaster recovery. They deliver Rubrik at scales outside of the traditional Rubrik bricks. And they also have a la carte management for other backup and disaster recovery needs that maybe you may or may not have in your environment. So again, super excited to talk to Assured DP. We love how creative they get for our customers around Rubrik to really maximize whatever budget our clients have for this type of solution. So with all that being said, Stacy, I'll turn it over to you guys, and yeah, you guys go ahead and get started.
Awesome, Bryce. Thank you very much for the introduction. And for the audience, this is obviously a presentation but you know, we got a big team on our side that is watching the chat windows. So if you've got a question, just drop it into the chat window, and one of our administrators will interrupt me, and we'll get your question asked. If you see something that comes up on the screen, you know, that prompts you to want to interrupt and go a little deeper, we're very flexible. Then the other thing that I would say is that we are going to save time at the very end. So if you've got any questions that you just want to hold till the very end, just say, you know, you can hold this one to the end, and either Victoria or Jonathan, you know, we'll jump in there. Yeah, my goal is to kind of give us 10 minutes at the end to be able to ask some questions. So anything come in, anything right there? I saw a little pop up, Jonathan or Victoria.
No, we just had somebody say good morning.
Ah, okay. Well, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Victoria is dialed in from our EMEA office, so it's late afternoon over there. So Bryce made a good introduction, and I think that if I was a participant on this call, before I heard anything about Assured or Rubrik or even Opkalla, you know, my question would be, how is this hour I'm about to invest relevant to me? And we believe that it's relevant for this very reason. We've started, you know, I'm one of the co-founders here. My name's Stacy Hayes. I'm speaking to you from, you know, our America's headquarters. We're right across from Dulles Airport in Northern Virginia. We sell through the channel. We consider ourselves as an OEM of service, and that's why partners like Opkalla are so important to us. We won't put boots on the ground in the regions that we serve, and we're a global organization, as you'll see. We prefer to have those boots on the ground be our partners, and so we build relationships with companies like Opkalla that have an eye towards them being extensions of us, and the frontline, you know, kind of customer support for ostensibly people like the attendees on this call. But you know, where are you today? Where do we find the people that we talk to today? And what we find today, for the most part, we've been in business for, you know, going on 6 years now. We've been working with Rubrik since very early days, and the majority of our customers, despite all the talk of public cloud, still have workload on premise. You know, they're legacy applications. There are things that they intend to move. There are things they can't move. There are things that they might not ever imagine moving, but we have workloads that are on premise. At the same time, almost every one of those customers is, you know, public cloud, or, you know, we'll keep it at public cloud. AWS, Azure, GCP is a relevant part of the conversation. The low end of, you know, the ease, you know, kind of the toe in the water is Office 365, all the way up to the other end of, you know, actively either, you know, being 100% operations in the public cloud, or taking non-native applications and converting them into the cloud. And then in between, you know, there's SaaS, you know, and we see a lot of SaaS adoption, and we kind of treat that the same way, because if you think about, you know, where are those public clouds? Well, they sit in physical data centers, and guess what else is in those physical data centers? It is the cloud infrastructure for Salesforce, for ServiceNow. You know, it's Q1, Relativity. You know, those applications that are being delivered now in a SaaS model, they're there as well. And so cloud is a relevant component of the conversation. But then finally, you know, not finally, but in addition to the public cloud, third-party data center, for the purposes of redundancy and disaster recovery is also, a relevant thing in the world. And we encounter a lot of customers that are running multiple data centers for that very purpose. They might not necessarily have production workload in multiple locations, but in some instances we see them in, 2 locations, with the second location being only there for the purposes of disaster recovery and business continuity. And I created this slide, to make it vendor neutral. The third-party data center, for the purposes of this particular point of the conversation, could be anything. It could be another site that you own. It could be co-location that you keep across the country or across town. For the purposes of the rest of this conversation, that third-party data center is assured. So we exist to be that second site for the purposes of data redundancy and business continuity. And we chose very carefully where we place that with our global footprint. We adopted the Equinix footprint of data centers. We did that for 2 primary reasons. One, Equinix is synonymous with security. They have a global standard. All of their data centers support an active and always updated SOC 1 and SOC 2 certification. And so security is a big reason for selecting those data centers. The Equinix security posture, along with our certifications, ISO 9000, 27001, and now SOC 2, also put us in a very unique position to help customers where compliance is a consideration and a concern when it comes to selecting third-party support and hosting partners for data backup and disaster recovery. The second piece of importance for Equinix, and quite honestly, it would be for any data center that you might choose, is connectivity to that public cloud. You see how this now kind of creates itself in a triangle. And the third leg of that triangle is your ability to access the public cloud, from those third-party data centers. And that is really the second reason we chose Equinix, because as I said earlier, they're kind of the gold standard for a lot of the public cloud providers today. Most of the public clouds and SaaS providers that you might be considering or currently using today have endpoints that exist inside of the Equinix family. Equinix has gone to the step of creating something they call the Equinix Cloud Exchange, which is a secure, high-speed, low-latency web of connectivity that ties all of their facilities together. It's a layer 2 connection. It's off internet, and we live on that connection in their marketplace. And so by partnering with Assured, it gives you the ability to step inside of the Equinix facility, and then gives you the ability then to hop on the Cloud Exchange, which gives you yet another connection point to the public cloud. And then finally, the thing that you'll see depicted in this drawing is Rubrik themselves. And the reason that we decided now almost 5, nearly 6 years ago to partner with Rubrik, and to partner with Rubrik exclusively, was because of their vision around not only data protection, but also helping customers extract more value from the data that they protect. Rubrik, from the ground floor up, was built to exist or instantiate in all 3 corners of this triangle. So whether it's on your premise, in a secondary data center that may or may not be ours, or in the public cloud, Rubrik has the ability to be there to help you along that journey that this represents, and to do so in a manner that doesn't cause vendor interlock. So you don't end up with VMs that have proprietary lock-in to a platform. And we'll see this as we go through the day, but one of the calling cards of Rubrik is its ability to do something called live mounting, which allows you to launch directly from the Rubrik technology an instance of your VM. They also help you do VM conversion. So if you're doing disaster recovery in the cloud and you need to go from VMware, to the Zen variant that is in AWS, Rubrik will allow you to do that. So there's great forethought into the construction of Rubrik as it relates to the public cloud and customers all along that journey. And that's a differentiator of theirs versus the traditional tools that we find that were oftentimes created before the three main drivers that we live in today. And those three main drivers are virtualization, public cloud, and scale out architecture. And so people that, technologies, I mean, look, I've been in the business for many, many years, and I'm sure some of you have as well, and we're familiar with some of the other more traditional names in data protection. The disadvantage they have is that they are racing to keep up with this new world order, whereas a Rubrik has this ability, this benefit, because they've started essentially with a clean sheet of paper to not be encumbered by legacy infrastructure, and therefore not only advance their ability to penetrate the market, but to also bring more features to the market and to their customers faster. So a really cool story there. And I think, again, it's important to set the stage, because I created that slide because that's where, within days of us opening our doors, we found that our customers they were somewhere on that journey. Very rarely do you interface with the people that have just fully gone to the cloud. Everybody, it's an imperative from the top of every corporation down into the IT department to explore that platform and to understand it better and understand what value it has and what it represents to the company. And so, I felt like it was really important to kind of set the stage there. So a little bit about Assured and who we are. As I said, I'm talking to you from Northern Virginia. We are a global organization. We have a team in Europe that focuses on EMEA and Asia Pac, and we have footprint in both the United Kingdom, as well as in the northeast of the United States and Singapore. This slide needs updated. We're just in the process of opening up Amsterdam. So global footprint, which puts us in a unique position to support our customers, regardless of where they are located. We were preparing for a large presentation the other day, and some member of our team, had let us know that we are deployed in 40 different countries. And I didn't know that. And I think that's cool. That's kind of why we got together. And when I say we, who's we? The organization was founded by essentially 5 of us. We're all veterans of the managed backup and disaster recovery space. Literally between the 5 founders of Assured, we have over 100 years of collective experience delivering backup and disaster recovery as a managed service. So we were doing this. We've been doing this for a long time. We were all kind of in various states of doing something else, and we were literally discovered. We were contacted by Rubrik. Rubrik was looking for someone that could deliver, that could create a delivery model that put Rubrik on customer premise and gave customers the ability to consume it as a service, to make it managed, to have a hosted second site redundancy. And they just couldn't find that kind of partner in their current resale model, which was VAR dependent. And as we all know on the phone, or on this presentation, the VAR business model isn't the MSP business model. VAR models are episodic. They're transaction based. whereas this is built it so that you can come and you can operate on the platform. And so it takes a different way of looking at things to be an MSP, and it takes a lot of focus to be a successful MSP, and that's what we have here at Assured. We mentioned Rubrik quite a bit because we have a level of what we like to refer to as self-imposed exclusivity to Rubrik. We only use their platform. So if you're familiar with other competitors, and if the question comes up, could we deliver something else? The short answer is that we don't. We find that 5 years later, the bet we made with Rubrik was a good one. We continue to support it. However, and you will see as we go through this presentation, situations where the Rubrik technology isn't necessarily the best in the market, then we'll go outside of the lifelines of Rubrik to procure a better technology for our customers. And so, like Bryce had mentioned earlier, much like Opkalla, vendor neutral advisory firm, best of breed, that's the way to look at us from a backup and disaster recovery perspective. We are not Rubrik. We are Assured Data Protection. We personally think that out of the disruptors in the service and the OEM options in the marketplace, Rubrik is and still today remains the best option, one of the best options for enterprise backup that can drive itself, down into the mid-market. If we ever felt that changed, we would make a change ourselves. But at the end of the day, that's what we do. We focus very intently on it, and that's why the quality of our service is as high as it is. So what do we deliver? We deliver, if you can imagine, a fully managed experience around the function of backup and disaster recovery. That's what we do. All aspects of the performance of the solution, I'll show you a topology slide in just a minute, are fully monitored by us. We basically get you out of the business of having to take care of your backups. From deployment to operation, recovery, disaster recovery, migration to the cloud, workload migration, you name it, our staff's there. We're there on a 24/7 basis. We handle tier 1 and tier 2 support internally. Anything that is not something that we can handle is almost by definition an issue that has to be addressed by Rubrik. It is something related to the Rubrik code. We escalate internally to Rubrik as tier 3 and then own that solution all the way back down to you as the customer. So at no point do you get handed off to an OEM, and at no point do you own title, unless of course you want to, because Bryce mentioned, and we'll get into it a little bit later, hybrid options, but unless you want to, you don't even hold title to the actual Rubrik technology that you're leveraging for your backups. It is a fully end-to-end managed service. We've internalized our own help desk. We have it's staffed by Assured employees. It is 24/7, and so you can rest assured that when you call us in the middle of the night or off hours or on the weekend, you're not going to hit a call center. You're going to get a live Rubrik trained, Rubrik certified, Assured Data Protection employee that is going to be able to immediately help you triage what's going on and cut down the time it's going to take to solve your problem. Outside of just day-to-day operations, Rubrik is innovating quickly. They average, a major release twice a year. We handle all upgrades for you. We like to do QBRs with our customers. I say like because it's hard to get you guys together every 90 days, but that doesn't mean we don't try. And when we get together those 90 days, what we're doing is twofold. One, we're giving you an opportunity to just talk to us and tell us how we're doing when something's not going on. Because it's the old 80-20 rule in our world. 80% of our activity is focused on 20% of our customers at any one time. So what's that other 80% doing? Well, they don't have a problem. Let's just ring them up and see how we're doing and give them the mic. Let them tell us where they like what we're doing and where we can improve. But during that QBR process, we're also telling them about all the new features that are coming from Rubrik, and we're also acting as a two-way conduit. We are something called RASP, which is the first, and I believe perhaps only MSP that is Rubrik Authorized Service Provider qualified. It means that we have we've had to go through a lot of vetting to achieve vetting and training to achieve that certification. It also means that we have a higher level of access inside of Rubrik, and so we have this ability to act in a bi-directional manner to not only communicate to you as a customer what's over the horizon with Rubrik innovation, but also to communicate back to Rubrik, what are you looking for that you're not seeing in the current product, and how can we improve it? So the question really is, if there's anybody on the phone that has started to investigate Rubrik, how do you do this? Rubrik is two things outwardly facing to the world. It's a single tenant solution, and it's aimed at the enterprise. And so how do you make Rubrik multi-tenant? And the answer to that is what you see on the screen. It's our proprietary technology. It's called ProtectView. And what ProtectView is a monitoring and incident monitoring, consolidation and remediation tool. It has role-based access and control, which means that you can log into ProtectView as well as being able to log into the UI. We make a big deal of not hiding the Rubrik UI from you. One of the selling attributes of Rubrik is that it's easy to manage. So, why make it harder on you by making you log in a ticket and wait for one of us to respond, when all you want to do is, maybe live mount a server for the purposes of test and dev. You want to try out a new patch and see if it breaks anything before you move it into production. We don't stand in the way of that. So you have full access to the Rubrik UI. You have full access to ProtectView. But what ProtectView allows us to do is to deliver on that monitoring, that promise to you that you're now out of the business of having to pay attention to your backups. We monitor all aspects of the backup process, which is to say all of the backup jobs that run on whatever frequency that they run. In addition to that, replication, because Rubrik has very elegant replication, and archive for long-term retention of data. So all of those functions are monitored. In addition to that, the capacity of the Rubrik, because you've got literally data on premise, as well as the performance of Rubrik. So every time we're communicating with the Rubrik appliance, we measure dialogue response time. And if that starts to get slow, we'll flag it because it's a problem. And how do we know to look for that? Well, because we're an MSP and we live in this world every day. And that's really what ProtectView does. And it's what allows us to deliver on the promises that we make to you in our contractual documents. And so it elevates you out of having to play that game of OEM product feature functionality comparison, and instead focus on business outcomes. Instead of buying a piece of tech, you've signed a business contract with delivery, memorialized contractually in a service description, and service level agreements with penalties if for some reason we fail to meet our obligations. And so what we find is that it frees up customers to think more about business outcomes and objectives than trying to figure out who's got the shinier piece of tech and is that the right tech, not only for today, but tomorrow and the day after. The other thing that ProtectView allows us to do is basically turn Rubrik into a multi-tenant platform. And by doing that, we increase the value. So at the end of the day, this is a more value deliverable model as opposed to a single tenant investment in any one technology. And then the other final thing that it gives us this ability to do is then drive that technology down market. Bryce mentioned earlier that we can separate Rubrik, which is traditionally sold as an appliance, and separate its technology from its hardware. And by doing that, we have this ability to then open up an end of the market that Rubrik typically can't go to on its own. And that's down in the SMB. we sell by bands, and our lowest tier, our lowest band of service is 0 to 8 terabytes. So if you're on this call and you got 5 terabytes of data that you need to protect, and you've talked to Rubrik, and they start a conversation around 30 terabytes and go up, and it's a 6-figure investment in that kind of an appliance, and you think that for that, because of that interaction, this technology is not for you, I would encourage you to think again. I would encourage you to reach out to Bryce and get some time with us, because we can drive this technology down into that sub 10 terabyte level, make it very cost effective. So let's drop down just a little bit. What does this look like? A couple of important points here. Number one, there is a Rubrik appliance on your site. So you have a local backup on your premise, and that could be a single site. It could be multiple sites. We have numbers of customers. One of our customers is Jack Links, the guys who make beef jerky. They've got a big facility in Minneapolis, and then they have 15 remote locations, 2 of which are in Europe and have GDPR implication. And so we cover all of those locations. We back all of that data up locally where it is nearby for rapid recovery. I mentioned Live Mount earlier. It's a really unique feature of Rubrik that allows you to launch directly from the Rubrik appliance, which means your recovery time objectives, which used to be measured in gigabytes or terabytes per hours or days, is now near instant, because you can just immediately recover and launch that back into your hypervisor host and use it. And so it's a really neat feature. So you've got on the left-hand side of the screen, you've got this Rubrik appliance that is at your disposal. You've also got our monitoring appliance. It's either integrated into the Rubrik or it's bolted right above it. And then you see that dotted line around it. And that's important because that's a rigid perimeter. We don't have access to your production. We in fact, in order to deliver the service, the communications that we have with ProtectView back to our call center is very protected. It's outbound ports only, and it's very secure. And so we passed many security audits for our customers in the delivery of the service. And so that's a rigid boundary around the Rubrik on premise. Obviously, coming out of Rubrik, you have the ability to replicate. Replication is different than archive. Replication is basically communication between 2 instances of Rubrik, and you see that's what occurs when you go to ADP Equinix. DC3 stands for the data center that we're in here in Ashburn, Virginia. Rubrik replication is very efficient. It's incrementals forever. So once you've captured the initial seed, you're only changing the bits of data. You're only transmitting the bits of data that have changed, which means it's not a heavy impact on your internet connectivity. And then the other cool thing is that once you've got Rubrik data that was backed up on your premise, now over in a second facility, you then have the same Rubrik capabilities, primarily Live Mount, which is what introduces disaster recovery. And our disaster recovery is very robust. But then you also see at the top of the drawing, access to all of the public clouds. And so if you said, look, what I really want is I want data backed up locally on an appliance, and then I want to archive to AWS. I want to leverage archive, and that's different than replication. Archive is Rubrik's ability to write to either over the internet to any S3 target, or if you're on an internal network, you could also write to other NFS targets. But you might just say, look, I want a Rubrik on-prem, I want to archive to the cloud. Totally doable with our solution. You want to introduce replication, you can do that. You want to introduce disaster recovery, you just continue to add on. And we did that very conscientiously, and here's why. One of the things that, because we've been doing this all of our lives, we've just got deep experience as to what makes the customer happy and what makes the customer unhappy. And one of the things that makes you guys unhappy is hidden charges. And so what we've worked hard to do here at Assured is combine those into this tier approach that you see on the screen so that it's all inclusive. So if you said to, a member of Opkalla, look, here's what I want. I just want that Rubrik on premise. I want to be able to archive to my S3 account in AWS. That's tier 1. Everything is included. There's no hidden charges. As from a perspective of our delivery model, it's all inclusive. Then you want to introduce tier 2. You want to introduce second site replication to introduce some redundancy, some Rubrik redundancy into your solution. That's tier 2. Different price, everything is included. And then if you wanted to move up to disaster recovery as a service, that's tier 3. Again, just a simple movement, everything included. So what's the difference between tier 2 and tier 3? It's a great question, because if you remember back on the slide previous, you saw those resources. Let's see if I can drop back there without, making our world too crazy. You see all these disaster recovery resources over here on the right. Those resources are there and at your disposal in tier 2. So if you have an incident where your primary site, for whatever reason, becomes available and you need to recover your virtual machines in our environment in tier 2, you can do that. That's what we call business continuity. However, many of our customers want something more than that. And that's where tier 3 comes in. And tier 3 is, as I said earlier, introducing disaster recovery as a service. And you might go, okay, so what's the difference? So if I had tier 2 and I have business continuity, so I can recover if something happens, what exactly do I get if I bump up my spend and my investment in this solution to tier 3? And what you get is DR as a service. And this is very robust. We, first off, just a little side note, we all came from the enterprise. So this is our second company. How do you end up with 100 years of collective experience delivering backup as a service? Well, because you have, more than one company. And I was lucky enough to have a company in 2001 called DS3 Data Vaulting. Most of the people that work here at Assured were with me the first time. And we were acquired in 2009, ultimately to become a part of Verizon. And so we come from the enterprise, and we built DRAS to be enterprise grade. So you see the things that you get if you opt for this level of service. Customized run books and boot order automation. Everybody gets a dedicated firewall, because a virtual firewall, but because we live inside of a physical facility. If you want to bring in physical appliances, your own firewalls, a lot of people drop in Meraki, our SD-WAN appliances, and we just simply become a node on their network. Because as we all know, when it comes to DR, the long pole in the tent's not the recovery of VMs. The hard part is the network. How do your users access their applications when they're not where they used to be? And that's where the 2 DR drills per year come in. And for a period of up to 6 days, we don't charge you for the consumption of resources. Why do we do that? Because if you don't drill DR, it won't work when the chips are down. So for a period of up to 6 days, twice a year, we allow you to spin up your VMs in our environment and keep everything in a bubble. We don't have to do IP changes, and we give you access to that bubble, and you can UAT, you can performance test to your heart's content. It's there. It doesn't cost you anything, and we do it because if you don't do it, then it won't be there when you need it. And then finally, once those drills are over, you get 2 pieces of documentation. You just get a 1-page, certificate of completion that you can use for either third-party validation. If you've got an outside audit function that needs you to demonstrate that you've been able to do disaster recovery. And then there is a much more detailed report that is generated, because as we know, IT is dynamic. It never is static. It changes all the time. And so there are always changes to the run book that occur as a result of this disaster recovery drills. And so that is memorialized as well. So a very robust offering. Keeping an eye on the time, I always go on a little too long about some things that I get excited about, and I run out of time because there's nothing in this deck that I'm not excited about. One of those things that I'm excited about is Rubrik's ability to help you protect your data in the cloud. The misconceptions are all out there and I almost find them, somewhat pedestrian and a little insulting. I think we all know that just because data is in the cloud doesn't mean it's protected. And as you move data to AWS and Azure and GCP and up into SaaS-based applications, you still are on the hook to provide, third-party protection to those resources, whether they be applications or a SaaS function that you've moved to the cloud. And there, Rubrik has great capability to help you protect that data. You can build a multi-node cluster of Rubrik in the cloud. You can leverage something that they call Polaris, which is their SaaS platform that allows you to spin up and spin down ephemeral instances of Rubrik in order to back up data in AWS or Azure. And then finally, that cloud hosted option is our ability to sit inside of Equinix and reach into those public clouds and back a copy of your data out to a third party. And again, emphasis on, vendor separation, getting your data out of a Microsoft platform because you feel like you're becoming more and more dependent on that company and you want a little bit of separation. And so when that time comes, whether it's now or in the future, know that we've got your back. And again, you're not having any issues with vendor interlock or anything like that. I wanted to talk just a little bit about Office 365 because Office 365 is one of those instances where we've had to step outside of the family in order to deliver the best of breed product. You see here on the screen, in the interest of time, won't read it to you, but Microsoft themselves makes it clear, down in the fine print that, they're not liable for disruption and loss, and they recommend that you use a third party to protect your data. What you'll see is that the amount of protection that comes with Office 365 is limited. And you see what Office 365 does here on the screen. You see where things get permanently deleted, and then you see that the product that we've selected is there to give you better protection for those components. The other thing that I will tell you is that what we've seen in this time that we live in, with the emphasis, this acceleration that we've all had to experience with remote workforce, is that it hasn't been the mail calendar contacts of Office 365 that have become important. It has been SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams that have been more used. And what we've seen is that customers have woken up to the reality that a lot of their data has migrated into these platforms and they don't have a good handle on the protection and recoverability, not only of the data, but the structure that is associated with those platforms. And so that's why we had to step out, because our demand that was coming from customers was in that realm more so than mail calendar contacts. And so I'm happy to report there that we've got a best of breed product. We would be happy to talk to you about it more. One thing I like to finish with, I'm sure that's a great relief to everybody that Stacy's getting to the end, is a great customer success story. So, this is obviously sanitized, but what this is a customer of ours that is in the retail space. They were running a data center in the back of their environment. One of the retail environments. They experienced disruption because of the riots back in the summer of 2020, and had to fail over onto our platform. It's a success story, not only because of what we were able to do, but it was also a success story because of where they were in the process. They had signed up for tier 3 services, but we hadn't yet got them deployed before this unfortunate incident happened. And regardless, we were able to, within a matter of a Sunday, in 45 minutes, have their ERP solution up, running, and answering recalls from their various retail outlets, over 57, as they went through the process of closing down operations on a Sunday. And so a great example of our ability to provide business continuity to customers. And then more importantly, is the fact that they then, had to run on our platform for a period of 3 months. And so you see the DR consumption numbers for June, July, and August. Those were big numbers, but, we're talking about running, in a consumption model for a period of time. And then why did it end in August? Well, they obviously rethought their strategy. They opted to do 2 things, not just one. They opted for co-location in a secure data center and a higher level of reliance on public cloud. And so we were there from a consulting perspective to help them craft where their recovery sites were going to be and then actually affect that recovery when the time came. So very robust offerings, all of that bundled in. And other than the resource consumption that you see at the bottom, it's just a part of delivering the service. And so it turned into be, a very good solution to a very bad problem. And then finally, I'll stop here, turn it over to Victoria and Jonathan to see if we got any questions. At some point, I think we're at a point now where we have, I think we now don't put all of our customers on our slide anymore. So it's gotten really big. I'm particularly proud of this slide. But I think the message that I would like for this to relay to you, and the last thing that I would like to tell you, other than thank you for spending your afternoon with us, is that we've been doing this for a while. We're really good at it. And if you are of a mindset to leverage service providers to take those mission critical yet not mission related requirements, of which at the top of that list is backup and disaster recovery. You're not a better law firm because you've got great backup and disaster recovery, but you could be out of the law firm business if you can't recover your data. And so that's why it's high on the list, but it's not mission accretive. It's not mission supporting. If you are of a mindset to leverage service providers to help you with that, I would only ask that you give us a shot at your business. Give Bryce and the team at Opkalla a call. We'll support them 100%, and we would love to add your logo to this slide. Victoria, we got any questions, or is everybody asleep out there?
Thanks, Stacey. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions that have come in. The first one says, we have around 5 terabytes of data. Do you work with smaller businesses like us?
Yeah, that was probably before I just wore everybody out with our band approach. So yes, the answer is absolutely. So because we have this ability to take the Rubrik technology and put it on hardware that we own, we don't have to deploy a 4-node cluster in your data center, which means that, we can cost effectively deliver, a physical appliance, just everything you saw on that topology screen. You still get a physical appliance. You still have isolation of your backups from your production. You could run, the Rubrik technology could run on an ESX host, but then you've got your backup on your production. Nobody wants to do that. So we land that physical device. It is everything you saw in that topology screen, and it is cost effective down to, someone with 5 terabytes.
Thanks, Stacey. So we've had another question come in. It says, will this work well for source servers in GCP Destination AWS as DR site?
Yes, with qualification. The maturity of Rubrik in the public cloud is strongest inside of AWS and Azure. With GCP, we are, Rubrik themselves are just, they're just not as deep with their integration into the Google platform. However, because we can reach into that GCP platform via our occupancy on the Cloud Exchange, it gives us the ability to protect workloads that are there and get a copy of them out of Google. That copy is coming back to Equinix, so maybe not coming directly into AWS or Azure, but you would also then be able to leverage AWS if you wanted to from an archive target perspective. So, yes, we can, with obviously, some caveats. Whoever posed that question, if you want to reach out to Bryce, maybe we should get you on the phone with one of our technologists and let them dig a little bit deeper.
Great, thank you. I've got another one here. It says, I have multiple sites with varying data footprints. Would your solution be able to support all of my sites?
Yes. We don't care how many sites you've got. We're looking at a major European publicly traded, I think Fortune 500, literally has 65 remote locations. That classifies as a complicated Rubrik installment. I would point out, and I didn't say, that we sell ProtectView. We literally license ProtectView as a standalone product because there's two use cases. There are other service providers that want to emulate our business, and then there are large, complicated deployments of Rubrik where they say, look, I don't need a third party. I've got people to do this, but I want to leverage your tool. And so regardless of whether it's something that you wanted to do yourself or whether it's an example, again, like Jack Links, where you have, you have a large centralized site, then you have 14 remote locations. You have some locations backing up and replicating back to the central site. You have some located backing up and replicating to us back here at Assured in Northern Virginia. And then also, like I mentioned, you have those two European sites where, because of GDPR, the data cannot leave those two localities. And so there we are very innovative with the use of Rubrik on premise and the public clouds, because you can achieve that isolation and meet those GDPR requirements. And you can provide localized backup, get a copy of the data offsite in case something happens locally, and deliver all of it as a consumption-based service.
Cool, thank you. We've had another one come in. How would Rubrik, sorry, I've read that wrong. What would happen if we were hit by ransomware? How would Rubrik work?
Oh, now that I think about it, I kind of skipped over that, and I'm glad someone asked that question. It's a great question because of two things. One, Rubrik itself, its backups are immutable, which I didn't know what that word meant 5 years ago, but now I use it like chewing gum. Immutable backups mean that they can't be changed. That once that data is ingested, Rubrik has its own proprietary file system, and it is a write-only file system. So even if we back up, let's say you've got a 0-day infection, and it's gone off, and so the data that was backed up has the virus in it. You can go back to before the virus launched. And even if you can't recover the data, recover the VM, you have methods of extracting the data out of the actual VM without launching the VM and re-triggering the virus. And that is that immutability of that backup. And so, when you've got Rubrik, you've got an ability to recover from ransomware. And then the other thing that I didn't mention, because it was just out of scope, we just don't have that much time, is that's been a big driver for our business. Obviously, it was an omission on my behalf. I apologize. I should have talked about that earlier. But what we tend to see is that customers come to us because of that function, that feature of Rubrik, but they also say, hey, can you do more? Can you help us identify the bad guys before the trigger event? Can you help us stop ransomware? You do a great job of helping us recover, but how can you help us stop it? And we took that to heart, and we again went back into the market, and we've developed what we are bringing to market now called advanced detection and response. It's called XDR as a service. And what XDR is an agent-based application that, instead of living on the perimeter which is a very busy and crowded space, it lives at the application layer. It lives in the data center. And it memorializes, it tracks and memorializes east-west traffic between the applications, and then presents that back to either us as your service provider or you as a user as a storyboard, so that you can start to link together what independently would look like, you know, just normal IT events. Somebody's, you know, accessing something, the things are moving around inside of your environment. But because it correlates all of those and presents them back to you in a story, you start to see that what was, you know, just independently fairly, germane IT events, then start to tie together and provide evidence of something more nefarious taking place. And so we're really excited about rolling this out. It's called XDR as a service. And again, if it's something that you're interested in, it's something that we can deliver through our partnership with Opkalla.
Thanks, Stacey. That's it for the questions that have come in.
Well, thank you, Victoria. Bryce, if I haven't put you completely to sleep, if you want to come in here and maybe talk a little bit about wrapping things up. And I believe we've got some surprises to give to people, right? Is that, you got something? Something
Yeah,
cool
we
going on?
do. Yep, we do. And yeah, thank you. That was great information. And I thought you did a really good job explaining it for everybody. I will let everyone know that I'll be reaching out to everyone after this. If you'd like to have a personal demo with the Assured DP team, or you have some personal questions that we can email back and forth, I'll reach out. Just let me know. We'd love to set up a call for you guys to talk to Assured DP. And then we're also giving away prizes to the attendees. So we will let you know if you won the prizes. So thank you so much. And yeah, have a great rest of your week. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining.